Well, the first of 7 bills before us today is introductory number 828A, sponsored by Council members Brewer, Dickens, James, Lander, Levin, Palmer, Rose, Wills, Rodriguez, Chin, Garodnick, Jackson, and Barron. This legislation extends in perpetuity, which I think is a long time, the city's False Claims Act and brings it into closer conformance with the New York State False Claims Act. The city's False Claims Act provides a means for individuals to bring evidence of false claims for city funds to the attention of city authorities. It also provides for those individuals to receive a percentage of any financial recovery to the city based on the information they provide. Since the law was enacted by the City Council and our administration in 2005, the Corporation Counsel's Office and the Department of Investigation have found it to be a useful tool in their efforts to curb fraud. Introductory number 828A permanently extends the law and makes other important improvements, including increasing the minimum amount that a private individual may receive if a City False Claims Act suit results in monies returned to the city. And I would like to thank the Department of Investigations Commissioner Rose Gilhern, Corporation Counsel Michael Cardozo, and their staff for their work on this bill, along with our Office of City Legislative Affairs and the City Council for approving this legislation. Would anybody like to speak? Anybody in the audience would like to speak? If not, I will sign the bill. The next bill before us today, the next 2 bills before us today relate to New York City's whistleblower laws. The first bill is introductory number 816A, is sponsored by Council members Garodnick, Halloran, Drum, Barron, Brewer, Ferraris, Fiddler, Gentili, Jackson, James, Koo, Capel, Lander, Levin, Mark Viverito, Palmer, Rose, Sanders, Seabrook, Van Bremer, Vaughn, Williams, Rivera, Rodriguez, Foster, Chin, Mealy, Gennaro, and Ulrich. City employees currently have protection from employer retaliation under the city's whistleblower laws, and this legislation would extend those protection to employees of city contractors and subcontractors working on city contracts valued in excess of $100,000. Introductory number 816A prohibits these contractors from taking any adverse personnel action against an employee who reports fraud or mismanagement. It also provides for an employee who has been subject to retaliation from a contractor or subcontractor to sue their employer. The second bill, introductory number 479A, is sponsored by Council members Garodnick, Barron, Brewer, Chin, Drum, Ferraris, Fiddler, Gennaro, Gentili, Jackson, James, Capel, Lander, Mark Viverito, Mealy, Mendez, Palmer, Rose, Seabrook, Van, Williams, Nelson, Foster, Van Bremer, Halloran, and Koo. This legislation requires city contractors and subcontractors having contracts valued in excess of $100,000 to post information notifying their employees of their whistleblower protection rights and the process for reporting misconduct to the Department of Investigation. Together, these 2 bills represent great improvements to our whistleblower laws, working to provide more rights and protections to contractors' employees and ensuring that those employees are aware of their rights. Sometimes it is those individuals working for city contractors who are in the best position to spot wrongdoing, and the enactment of these bills will encourage them to speak up if they witness malfeasance concerning these contracts. These measures will help preserve integrity to the city's contracting process, a goal to which our administration remains committed. And I'd like to thank the Department of Investigations Commissioner Rose Gilhern, Corporation Counsel Michael Cardozo, Mayor's Office of Contract Services Director Andrea Glick, and their staff for their work on this bill, along with our Office of City Legislative Affairs and the City Council for approving this legislation. Anybody like to speak?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I want to encourage you to sign these 2 important bills into law today. Both the Whistleblower Protection Expansion Act and the False Claims Notification Act will empower employees of city contractors and their subcontractors to report suspected or known corruption without fear of retaliation by their employers. Here's why New York City needs this legislation. As of today, the city provides strong whistleblower protections for its employees. City agencies may not take retaliatory action against employees should an employee report suspected or known fraud to the Department of Investigation. That is an excellent mechanism to prevent fraudulent activity from occurring in the first place, while also helping to ensure robust protection of taxpayer dollars. Employees of businesses that contract with the city and their subcontractors, however, were previously, at least not until today, not afforded any such protections under law, even though the city's 2013 fiscal year budget will again include over 17,000 contracts with an aggregate value of over $10 billion. Given the enormity of the city's contract budget, it was clear to us that we needed to extend whistleblower protections to employees of contractors and subcontractors, and of course to ensure that those employees are made aware of their rights. With these laws, we are empowering employees of city contractors and subcontractors with the whistleblower protections afforded to public employees. They are in the very best position to report corruption and should be encouraged to help safeguard our taxpayer dollars without fear of retaliation. I want to thank my colleagues in the Council for passing this important bill, the Speaker, the great staff of the Government Operations Committee, Councilmember Brewer, the Chair, and Mr. Mayor, again, I encourage you to sign the bills. Thank you.
Anybody else like to add anything? If not, I'll sign the bills. The next two bills enhance the Taxi and Limousine Commission's enforcement efforts. The first bill, introductory number 725A, is intended to put a stop to an alarming trend in the sex trafficking industry in which prostitutes are shuttled in livery cabs to their, to their johns. The bill is sponsored by Council members Ferraris, Vaca, Barron, Brewer, Cabrera, Comrie, Dickens, Fiddler, Foster, James, Koslowitz, Lander, Levin, Mark Viverito, Palmer, Recchia, Rainier, Rose, Sanders, Van Bremer, Williams, Wills, Jackson, Lappin, Vallone, Rodriguez, Drum, Garodnik, Chin, Arroyo, Capel, Koo, Gennaro, Mealy, and Ulrich. This legislation carries a new penalty for facilitating sex trafficking with a vehicle. It also requires the Taxi and Limousine Commission to provide training to all of their licensed drivers about the laws relating to sex trafficking with a vehicle and the services available to victims of sex trafficking. Sex trafficking is a terrible crime that exploits innocent and vulnerable people, and it has got to stop. That is why it is imperative that our city's enforcement personnel have the tools they need to adapt with the times and crack down on traffickers. Introductory number 725A ensures that all TLC licenses are up to date on the regulations relating to sex trafficking and the services offered to victims, and by creating an additional civil penalty for those who have been convicted of companion penal law crimes. It would also enable prosecutors to throw the book at those who have been proven in court to have broken this law and facilitated sex trafficking with a vehicle. The second bill, introductory number 735A, is sponsored by Council members Vaca, Crowley, Cabrera, Comrie, Fiddler, James, Koslowitz, Levin, Nelson, Palmer, Recchia, Williams, Lappin, Van Bremer, Vallone, Garodnik, Chin, Jackson, Arroyo, Koo, Gennaro, Mealy, Halloran, and Ulrich. Introductory number 735A addresses the danger that arises when drivers dodge the TLC's licensing rules and operate without a license. This bill increases both the civil and criminal penalties for driving a for-hired vehicle without a TLC driver's license and driving a for-hired vehicle that doesn't have a TLC license. It would also require the TLC to post on its website and report to the Council information from the prior quarter relating to enforcement actions taken for both these violations. TLC's licensing process is designed to ensure safety for the riding public, and this bill would create tough incentives for those who flout the law, disincentives for those who flout the law. The street hail livery law signed by Governor Cuomo earlier this year would also encourage drivers to become licensed by legalizing a practice that has been going on for decades, liveries picking up street hails outside of central Manhattan. I'd like to thank the Taxi and Limousine Commissioner David Yaski, Police Commissioner Ray Kelly, and their staff for working on this bill, along with my Office of City Legislative Affairs and the City Council for approving this legislation. Councilman, who wants to talk?
Thank you. Thank you. Human trafficking is one of the most horrific crimes committed and widespread in this city, especially in my district. It does not just happen in other countries halfway across the world. Women and youth become victims of it here in our own neighborhoods every single day. Since becoming chair of the Women's Issues Committee, we have held 6 hearings on issues and legislation related to human trafficking. Testimony at these hearings indicated that some Taxi and Limousine Commission licensed drivers are actively participating in sex trafficking rings by transporting victims to Johns, collecting victims' earnings, and sharing in the profits with traffickers. For example, one victim estimated that she worked with 70 drivers who brought her to 5,000 clients and took portions of her earnings beyond the customary fare. I am proud to bring Intro 725A before you for consideration today to seek to address one of the structures supporting sex trafficking in our city and sends a clear message to traffickers in New York City that we will use every tool available to combat this horrendous crime. If enacted, it will establish a civil penalty by any TLC licensed driver, owner, or base station licensee who is criminally convicted for actively participating and profiting from sex trafficking. It will also require the TLC to establish a program to educate all TLC licensed drivers about laws that prohibit the use of vehicles for trafficking purposes and resources that are available to assist victims. I urge you, Mr. Mayor, to sign this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did want to speak on Intro 735, which is legislation I introduced before you today, Mr. Mayor, that the council passed concerning cabs that are not cabs. We have thousands of people every week in the city that are being picked up by people who decide that their cab is a cab for the day. They're not yellow, they're not livery. They just take it upon themselves to use their personal vehicles and pick people up. And people are getting into these cars without any knowledge as to whether or not the driver is licensed, whether or not the car is insured, whether or not there have been serious accidents involving the vehicle. When vehicles such as this are not licensed by the Taxi and Limousine Commission in any shape or form, the suspecting public has to be even more suspicious. The public has to beware. I want these cars off the street. They endanger the public each and every day. And this legislation increases fines, but it also authorizes the Taxi and Limousine Commission to begin seizures of these cars, cabs that are not cabs in any shape or form. So, Mr. Mayor, I thank you and your office, of course, for its cooperation, but on both Councilmember Julis's bill, which my committee was honored to pass, and on 735, I would urge you to sign it. Both really protect the safety of the passengers here in the city of New York, and they're long overdue. Thank you.
We have a number of people signed up for this bill. If you could get up there, we have a 2-minute limit. But Bill Lindauer from the New York Taxis Worker Alliance, Aries Baez, Latin Taxi Drivers Union, Fernando Mateo, from the New York State Federation of Taxi Drivers, Jose Brito, Taxi is the name of the company, and Carmen Diaz from Atlas, in that order, so if you can just sort of get ready. I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
My name is Bill Lindauer. I'm with the New York Taxi Workers Alliance. Beta V. Desai, Executive Director. She could not be here, but I'm going to speak on her behalf. Now, 735A is an excellent bill, Chairman Vaca, but 725A is fatally flawed. It's, as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Do we know of a single instance of any yellow cab driver indulging in sex trafficking. And all we do has we have invited the New York Post to make a mockery of the council and the mayor and instill fear in good-looking women because they figure they won't be picked up by cab drivers. I don't think it's necessary to include yellow cab drivers in this. And when you read the bill, Mr. Mayor, you just said livery drivers. Well, I can't speak for livery drivers. I only can speak for yellow cab drivers. I was one for 30 years. And we've never indulged in sex trafficking. And we are not social workers. We are not policemen. They whipped up a sexual hysteria. We are, of course, against the horrible crime of sex trafficking. But you're smearing cab drivers. This is sexual McCarthyism. As Joseph Welch said many years ago, have you no decency, sir? Thank you.
Thank you. Reese Baez? I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it.
Good afternoon. I'm Aris Baez. We consider this bill is violating our rights. There's a principle, universal principle, your right, innocent presumption. And then this law is ignoring about us. We don't support the victim's crime against the women and everything like that. But we are not trafficking sex because we just do our job. Our job is give transportation to the people, not making business with that kind of crimes. And then we're asking about the city consider the consequence about the financial damage because this law is discriminatory and racist against the women, against the taxi drivers. We making our job honesty and the sensitive people. Thank you.
Thank you. Fernando, do you want to go next or last or what?
My name is Jose Brito. Yes. I have 2 children. I have a United States father. Walking, taxi drive, walking, nothing money. Algunas veces mis niños me piden algo para comer y no tengo suficiente dinero para darle a ellos. Entonces, ¿cómo va a ser que quieren aprobar una ley que no trae beneficio para nosotros, que somos padres de familia, que tenemos hijos norteamericanos? Algunas veces yo me pongo a llorar cuando mis hijos me piden algo para comer, porque no tengo dinero. Entonces, yo les digo a ustedes que tienen que pensar en el futuro de los niños de esta nación, de los padres que tienen hijos norteamericanos, que tienen que ayudarnos las autoridades, a nosotros que trabajamos, que damos servicio a esta ciudad y en cambio no recibimos nada. Nosotros somos taxistas, que arriesgamos nuestra vida en las calles, que muchos compañeros han perdido la vida trabajando en las calles y muchos compañeros lo han operado, sufren de los riñones, sufren de la circulación, sufren de la próstata. Eso es toda la consecuencia que nos da el taxi. Mas, sin embargo, queremos que ustedes, que son las autoridades, piensen en nosotros y nos ayuden. Nos ayuden, que somos padres de familia, que tenemos hijos aquí en esta nación. Muchas gracias.
Carmen Díaz.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes a todos. Yo estoy aquí en compañía de los taxistas y pensando en la ley que están por aprobarle con las prostitutas. Yo creo que ellos salen a hacer un trabajo a la calle y no creo que pueden estar pendientes si es prostituta, si es una persona normal que sale a trabajar. Yo tengo mucha familia, yo tomo taxi y yo no creo que sea prostituta y que se debe respetar la persona. Y no estoy de acuerdo con la ley de la prostitución, porque hay mucha gente que todavía no tiene criterio para respetar a la persona, pero muchos de ellos sí salen de su trabajo y lamentablemente tienen accidentes, no tienen alcance para ir a un médico, no tienen el tiempo porque solamente están trabajando para buscar dinero para llevarle a la familia y no creo que tienen tiempo para ir a hacer cosas de delincuencia. Así que yo espero que sea lo mejor para ellos. Y buena tarde.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to at least express ourselves. I've been in the city all my life, and to see a bill like this come to your desk for your signature, to me, it's appalling. To see our council members using our taxpayer dollars to put forward a law for you to sign that makes no sense whatsoever, a law that really should be handled by the authorities, by the FBI, by the police department. These drivers are obligated to do one thing and one thing only, and that's pick up a passenger from point A to point B. They pick up murderers and get killed. They pick up drug addicts. They pick up executives. They pick up whomever stops them, and they transport them, and that's their job. Not for them to ask a beautiful young lady like the three ladies that are here in the front, hey, are you a prostitute? Because if you are, I can't pick you up. You know, this is a common sense thing. When you look at who the real traffickers of prostitutes are, it's the airlines, it's the Amtrak, it's the subways, it's MTA. You know, those are the big people transporting these women. What, are we going to now pull the pilot and fine them 10 grand and arrest them? Or find the airline because a prostitute went from New York to meet a governor in D.C.? I mean, come on, these guys are here to do a job. You know, I'm a club owner. I own some taxi cab companies. You know what? If a woman pulls them over, she's in distress because a guy beat her up. What are they going to do? Say, I can't pick you up. I'm sorry, you're beat up. I know you're a prostitute. I can't help you. I mean, what are you opening this up to? You know, $10,000 fine for anyone who picks up a prostitute is huge, number one. Number two, you're not in your head, Councilwoman, but I want you to know something. David Yaski, our honorable commissioner, and he's a good commissioner. He's done a great job. He knows and he understands because we've sat with each other across the table. And I've said to him, David, why are you taking this man's license away because he got arrested? Why don't you wait until he is prosecuted and if found guilty, then take his license away, not before he's found guilty? And this is an argument that David and I have had over and over again. It's something that should be on the table. You're saying here that in a second offense, you know what? There is no second offense. You get arrested, your license is being taken away immediately. That's something that should be specified. The mayor needs to know the truth. You know, the mayor has a lot of responsibilities, and he's up to a lot of good ideas. But when you take a bad idea and you put a wig on it and a skirt on it and you make it look like a sexy woman when you're not, you know what? That's not right. It's not fair. It's also not fair to these ladies that work till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, okay, when they get out and they're all hot and sexy, and they try to stop a cab, and the cab says, I can't pick you up, and he keeps going. Mayor, I know that I'm probably wasting my time, but you know what? It's well worth it. You're my friend. I've known you for many years. We don't agree on everything. But you know what? When I see that a bill like this is going to put so many poor people in jeopardy of losing their livelihood, in jeopardy of going to jail for something they do not know they're committing, is wrong. NYPD will have a squadron of women posing as prostitutes, stopping these guys, and as soon as they put them in the car, they're busted. We don't need that, Mayor. I think that you should reconsider, maybe take a few days, think about it. If you're up to signing it, you know what? You are a mayor. We're always going to support you. We love you, but this is not what we want you to sign.
David, do you want to say something?
Sure. First of all, I do think, I don't think anybody believes, Mr. Mayor, that taxi drivers, delivery drivers are in large numbers participating in sex trafficking. I think that what prompted the City Council to do this was one episode a few months back when 2 livery drivers were convicted of being part of a sex trafficking ring. And the idea is that we should do our part. And it's a small part to play, but with the TLC, we'll implement this, and to the extent that we have something to add to law enforcement, we will do that.
I questioned the other day, I don't know how a taxi driver, I still don't understand how a taxi driver can make a decision, and I do worry that if my daughters are out there after they are at a club and they come out late at night and they're dressed a lot more risquely, if that's a word, than people my generation did, but still appropriate for their generation, it does put a taxi driver in a difficult position. What I'm going to do is think about this for a couple days. Let me tell you 2 things. Wait a second. Time out. Time out. Number one, my inclination would be to support the bill for 2 practical reasons. One, because the commissioner thinks it's a decent bill, and I respect him, and I always try to support my commissioners, although sometimes you can't. And number 2, because I think for sure, if I were to veto this bill, it's going to get overridden instantly by the city council. Let's get serious here, what's likely to happen. So it's more symbolic, or it's more that I just want to satisfy myself that I've done as much due diligence as I should have, and I probably should have given more attention to it earlier. I did raise some questions, and I got answers, but while you were talking and everybody else was talking, quite honestly, I'm not so sure that I remember why I was satisfied the last time that all things considered, I should sign the bill. So I don't think you should get your hopes up. If I had to bet a lot of money, I would bet that I will sign it, but I will give everybody the courtesy of thinking about it for a couple days, and I'll make a decision. Today's Wednesday. I'll certainly make a decision by Friday, and we'll just announce what I've decided to do.
Thank you.
Let's go on.
Thank
I don't
you,
know if
Mayor.
you don't have to
Appreciate
love me.
it.
You might not like the results, so I'm saying don't get your head up. I just am not comfortable with it, and I want to be comfortable with it, and I'm certainly not going to walk away. I will either sign the bill or veto it. I don't like to duck. Let's do the other bills. The next is introductory number 688A, sponsored by Council Members Ignazio, James Mealy, Recchia, Nelson, Barron, Gennaro, Jackson, Koo, Halloran, Otto, and Ulrich. Introductory number 688A codifies the Department of Finance. The Department of Finance existing practice of requiring applicants to submit proof of eligibility when applying for certain personal exemptions. Submitting proof of eligibility will ensure that taxpayers are eligible and qualified to receive such exemptions, and I want to thank the Department of Finance Commissioner David Frankel and his staff for his work on this bill, along with my Office of City Legislative Affairs. Would anybody like to say anything? I will go sign the bill then. There's 2 of them. The final bill, can I sign them both? Final bill today is introductory number 877, sponsored at the request of the administration by council members Recchia, Vaca, Barron, Comrie, Fidler, Gennaro, Gentili, James, Koo, and Palmer. Introductory number 877 transfers the collection of the commercial motor vehicle tax on medallion taxi cabs from the Taxi and Limousine Commission to the Department of Finance. The commercial motor vehicle tax bill is paid by all for hire vehicles that operate in the city. This administrative transfer will restore the semi-annual installment payment schedule for the commercial motor vehicle tax on medallion taxi cabs, thus eliminating the current upfront payment requirement that can impose a hardship on the lessees and stand by. And drivers of medallion cabs that pay the commercial motor vehicle tax out of their own pocket. In addition, this bill gives the Taxi and Limousine Commission the authority to deny a license or the renewal of a license for any medallion taxi that fails to pay the commercial motor vehicle tax. And I want to thank the Department of Finance Commissioner David Frankel and Taxi and Limousine Commissioner David Yaski and their staff for their work on this bill, along with our Office of Legislative Affairs. Want to say something? If not, I will sign the bill. I'll sign both of them. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Absolutely. You may change my mind.
No, this is with respect to 725A. I thought you were going to ask for additional comments afterwards.
I did, and I should have.
Right, no. My name's Kathleen Slocum, and I'm a senior staff attorney at Sanctuary for Families, working primarily with foreign national victims of trafficking. And I just want to address the concerns that some of the taxi drivers brought up here and to reassure them that this is not a bill that targets ordinary street hails. So I would ask that rather than reading the salacious New York Post articles, that you read the text of the bill. And the language of the bill makes it abundantly clear that this is a civil penalty that is added on to those who are already prosecuted under existing New York state law. So you would first have to be convicted under New York state law of engaging in sex trafficking, which any DA can tell you is very, very difficult to do. So once that case is brought, once that person is convicted, then this penalty would kick in on top of that. So that addresses the concern.
But isn't it true you wouldn't have a license anymore?
So if you're convicted, if you are convicted of sex trafficking, for example, by the Manhattan DA's office, then after that conviction, post-conviction, then you would lose your license. Then there would be a $10,000 fine. Not before. And so this targets people who are engaging in sex trafficking as their primary business. I mean, we recognize that the majority of taxi cab drivers and livery cab drivers are extraordinarily hardworking people, just trying to feed their family, trying to do the best. I mean, they make the city run, and this bill was specifically drafted to not target them, but to people who I see exploiting my clients, who are having them work 18 to 20 hours a day, who have a list about 100 Johns that they force my clients to see. They tell them what sex acts these Johns like. They take the money from them. They beat them if they don't give the money. They engage them in lifelong debt bondage that they're unable to escape. And so this would kick in only after someone was convicted of sex trafficking. And then to address your concern about the education component of the bill and your worry that perhaps this will result in discrimination against women, if you read the text of the bill and not the New York Post article, it specifically says that you cannot discriminate on the basis of appearance. It says that the education program will inform drivers that they may not refuse fares solely based upon the appearance of an individual, and that it's unlawful to refuse a fare based upon an individual's actual or perceived sexual orientation or gender. And this was a piece that we put in thanks to Councilmember Drom's comments earlier in one of these hearings, and in part because of that, he has signed on and sponsored this bill. So we ask that you not listen to the hysteria about the bill in the media, but that you read the text of it and that you reconsider and that you sign this bill, which I think, we want the taxi drivers, they don't want people working in their midst who are abusing their license. As an attorney, I don't want people working who are abusing their license, and I want them to be disbarred if they are doing something illegal. And so I feel that this bill is right. It does take into consideration the concerns that the taxi drivers raised here, and I ask that you do sign it.
For what it's worth, I don't get my information about these bills from the press.
Right.
I get it from consulting, from reading the bill, consulting with the lawyers, talking to people in the industry. I want to make sure that it is practical to do. I think nobody disagrees that anybody that participates in encouraging or facilitating sex trafficking should be allowed to do so. Nobody disagrees there should be penalties opposed to them. The question is it practical, and will it, when you get out into the real field late at night, when a driver who's not a lawyer and hasn't read the bill has to make a decision. And so I'm going to look at it in the next couple days, and you'll find out by Friday what I said. And as I said before, I am very likely to sign the bill, and even if I don't, the City Council is very likely to overturn the veto if I veto it. But before I sign anything, I want to really understand it. And just listening to people, the more I listened, the more I thought, not because of what they said, but merely I started thinking more that I didn't quite understand it. There's no rush on me. I'm the mayor. I can wait. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.